Hey, I want to welcome you to hang out with me and my good friend Molly Trotter Gomez. She is just a powerful kingdom woman, and we have such a fun connection and story and how we got connected. But we really bonded over the fact that we are story strategists and story experts. And so, uh, in my uh, world over here, if you sign up for the Crown Accelerator, I have asked Molly to come in and be one of my bonuses for that program because in that program, not only am I going to help you turn your story into a seven-figure story strategy, but also I'm going to help you write um, publish and launch a best-selling book that really positions you as a thought leader in your industry. And this book is going to help turn your client, your readers into your ideal clients. And so once you've done that, you don't want to just let your book sit there. You're going to want to use your story to get on stages, and that's where Molly comes in. So I'm going to have her explain how she is going to that she's going to explain that experience that you get with her in the Crown Accelerator. And but first, Molly, just go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us about you and your background and what brought you to the point of really being a story strategist. And then just tell us a little bit more about what you're going to do with them in that story session.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I love that we are connected. It was a divine connection for sure. And I can't wait for us to tell the story because you never
Yeah, yeah,
know. You never know what
yeah.
thing, phrase, quote, what have you will pop out and be like, I like that. This is so different. I have to be able to say something. We spend all too much time just like, oh, I love that. We move on to the next. But people love
Yeah.
feedback. They love to know. So we'll share that a little
Yes.
bit later.
Yeah.
But a little bit of my background, I'm a former news anchor and reporter, and I really just got into that because I'm like, oh, this is fun. This is different than the rest. And I wanted to be able to tell stories. However, those stories are icky and just full of fear, doom and gloom. And I knew about a couple years in, I was like, I don't think this is going to be my forever home. But I got as much as I could. And really, it was a training ground for God to really help me process information, like really train my ear of what to listen for and take
Mm.
hours of interviewing and footage and pare it down to 30, 60, 90 seconds. And one of
Wow.
the things now, because of social media, which was really starting to kind of come out back then when I was in the news, like going live and stories, it was stories that are up to 60 seconds doing short form content because people's attention spans are shorter. So I kind of had this like ding, light bulb moment of, okay, I need to start creating content like that. And really, for the past decade, not only have I built my brand along those guidelines and whatever God put my hands to, I just went out there and just shared the stories as to why am I doing this? Who is it serving? And why did it even really matter? But the part that I saw that was always missing for people was, I call it the emotional bridge. It's creating
Mm.
that emotional bridge, that deeper connection, because so many people are using these catchy phrases and punchy lines and jargon that's like, okay, I've heard that before, but there's no substance behind it. When you
Yes.
build a brand and you have a message that really sticks and it magnetizes to people because they can feel your heart behind it, that
Mm.
matters. I actually just got done speaking at an event last week in San Diego, and it was a sold out room for a group of members for this organization. Half the room, probably over half the room, were men. And so I'm sitting here talking about a heartfelt message, and I'm like, I know you guys, for all the men that are in the room, I know you could care less. And so I'd throw some statistics in there because it's staggering. It's like 50, 70% more of the time, people will want to buy from you, connect with you, stick around longer when you have something that really connects with them emotionally. And then the guys
Yes.
started to perk up because men are just like, get out of here with the touchy feely. But the thing is, if you can make that connection, people are locked in and they're not going to jump to the rest. So I
Yes.
love being able to dig in, and I have a framework called the Story Framework. Story is an acronym to really dig in as to like, why are we even doing this in the first place? And it's actually mind blowing to me, Angela, that so many people will start a business and a movement and they want to obviously make a living or some type of an income, but they don't have a signature story And yet people are still making money and doing really well. I've worked with a lot of multiple 6, 7, and even 9-figure business owners that do not have this. But when you do have this, it's like putting the gasoline on the fire and it explodes. And so
Mm,
people can be successful without it, but it can even be better with it. And then it connects you really deeper into who you're serving. And it
mhm.
just roots you back into that heart posture as to why God gave this gift, anointing, movement, what have you, in the first place.
Mm.
So I just love being able to be in this space and helping people just dig that out. I call it pulling out the gold that's inside of them. So for all of those that are, working with you inside of this program and developing their book, like you mentioned, so much goes into this book. And for a lot of times I see so many authors, that book is like the best kept secret collecting dust on the shelf. And people
Yes.
spend really good money to put their book together. But now
Mhm.
it's how do we get that out there? And we
Yes.
all have a stage. It's called social media. It's a virtual stage. We all
Yeah.
have a place where we could actually share this for free as much as we want. So inside of for those that are working with you, we call it we're calling it the story to stage session within 90 minutes, really pulling out your signature story from the thesis, that statement inside of your book. Like, what
Mm.
is that? So then you can go out there and really, I mean, obviously paraphrase in a very slim manner, but it captures their attention. So you can be able to share your heart behind the book. They can get to know the author. They can get to know what is the book even about and why should it matter for them to pick that book out of millions of books out there. And as we're going through this 90-minute session, really you're getting personal feedback, targeted tweaks to just make a few adjustments so you can shape a powerful narrative around the book that you just created and really
Mm.
deliver that confidently. And again, a stage doesn't mean a physical one. Virtual ones, everybody's
Sure.
on these virtual ones now, and it's time to just start talking so people know what you're about and this beautiful creation that you just got done putting it all together.
Yes, I love that. You know what's so interesting about our stories is that a lot of times women say, well, I'm afraid that I'm going to look self-centered if I tell my story. But there's actually a thing, I'm sure you probably have heard of this, but it's called story psychology. And when people hear your story, they don't see you, which is mind blowing. They see themselves in your story. So you don't ever have to feel worried about looking self centered when you tell your story because people are seeing themselves in your story. And if you are telling what I call like the caterpillar story, then they see themselves as a caterpillar. But if you are telling your butterfly story, if you're telling your 7-figure story, they see themselves in that way. And that's why this is so important to connect with people using our story because, our stories, they say in marketing that your ideal clients are a version of you. So when people see you transforming, again, they see themselves going through that transformative process, the process that you went through to get from where you were to where you are right now. And that's what creates such a deep and powerful connection. Not only that, I found that, there are people that are our ideal clients that are out there. And they know it and they raise their hand and they're like, yes, I need to work with you. But if you're a business owner, there are also people out there that are your ideal client, but they don't know it yet. And
Yes.
so your book can actually turn them into an ideal client, helping them overcome those internal and external uh, objections, sorry, that are keeping them from really stepping into their next season that your program is going to push them over the edge to. So I love talking about your story and
Yes.
just all of our stories and helping women. I love you said you help people dig out the gold. And what's funny is that I say I help you mine the diamonds of your past. So we've got, we're going to help you pull out the gold and the diamonds, the wealth that
Yes.
is in your story. And, you can tell your story without throwing people under the bus. I have that as a big objection that a lot of times women come to me with, well, I've got this story and I think it would change the world, but if I tell it, I'm going to throw people under the bus. And so can you speak to that, Molly? Like, how would you speak to that right there?
Well, it's a touchy one. I get people asking about this a lot, and ultimately it's like it's your story and there are ways around it. There's ways to build characters around it. There's ways to be able to just, soften the blow, if you will, because so many people, when it comes to I need to share this part of my story, most of the time they haven't done enough healing yet for that story to be
Oh,
told most of
oh,
the time.
good.
So it's
Mm,
still coming from, I like to say, you want to share from a place of a scar, not a wound. And so if
mm,
you're in that space, you have to really, I mean, dig deep and really heal. And I believe once you really do heal, the story's powerful. You're already seeing the restoration happening in your life. And the Holy
mm,
Spirit will highlight, here's how we're going to share that story. So it still can preserve relationships
mm.
that you want to preserve, because most of the
Yes.
time people want to preserve these relationships. They don't want it to explode in their face. And then there's other times where people don't, but still doing it tastefully, where it's bringing an outcome to something that was a tension, is it can be tricky. So I, again, back to the healing point, most people haven't done that. And if you know that you know that you know, because the Holy Spirit will let you know, I am fully healed in this area, where no longer kind of just pokes at that place that hasn't scarred yet. It's just picking at it. You will
Oh,
know
so
how to
good.
be able to share this, paired with guidance from, myself, or even Angela, to really showcase, okay, well, how do you want to preserve the relationship and what do you want to share? And really, it's what's the goal, right? It's not just
Mm,
here's what happened to me, but there is a
yes.
silver lining goal of, I know I'm supposed to help other people walk through this and get to the other side, or what have you. So a lot of it, to sum it up, they haven't done enough healing yet. So you need to really sit in that and know that don't rush that process. But then what's the overall goal? Like, it's not just
Mm.
sharing the mess and leaving it out there for somebody else to clean up.
Yes.
It's
Right.
what are we doing on the end piece here?
That's exactly, boy, that's a good right there. That's a good point. And I find that when I always say that when you write your book, your story is going to be so transformational for others, but first it transforms you. And
Yes.
that's why I actually call myself a book midwife, because I'm going to help you birth out that royal message. Because when you begin to write your book, when you begin to identify your story, things do come up for you that you have to pause and you have to take care of. You have to let God heal that right there and then
Mhm.
turn it into a story. And the other thing that I think is super powerful is that when you're writing your book and you have something, you don't want to throw someone under the bus, also focusing on, like, instead of focusing on or talking about their actions, focus on your contribution, your mindsets, your thought patterns. Like, so in other words, like you could be in a relationship with a narcissist. And so it'd be real easy to say, well, I'm going to throw that person under the bus and they're this and they're that. But that's not what we're doing here. I always say we need to tell ourselves with grace and tell our story with grace and elegance. And the way you do that is, well, when, my part of that contribution is that I was in the habit of letting other people control me. And then you
Mm.
can tell your story from that place. And it really changes everything because now you're not blaming. And I would say, whatever you blame, you hand your power over to. So your book is not a tell all to blame, right?
Yes.
And your story from stage, like this is not a chance to like get up and put somebody on blast. But this is such a healing, transformative process of going through the process of writing your story, putting it in a book, and then getting on stage and telling it from a butterfly perspective, telling it from a seven-figure story perspective, so that you are showing up on stage as the expert. You say, look, this is the path that I've been on. And I got to tell you, when I wrote Summon to Soar, the 5 stages of the rise of a woman, I was writing the 5th stage, and it was a prophetic utterance. Like I had not been there yet. And I had to put myself in that place and say, what if I was at this level, what would life look like? And now I go back and I read that and I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's literally happening in my life right now. So such a powerful process. But I just love your story. I love everything you're doing. I love how God is using you. I love that He has connected us. And the way we got connected was, I guess I had put a quote on
Yes.
social media and it had the word creep in it. And so go ahead, you start, and then I'll read the quote.
I mean, it's not very often you see something like creep. I'm like, what are you talking about? Because we all creep at some point, okay? Whether we're creeping on somebody's profile, we're just creeping along in life. And so I was like, this is so funny. But the powerful part was that caught my attention. Then I went to go look at a little bit more of your profile, your brand, if you will. I'm like, I already love her. She's amazing. I need to connect. So it was easy for me to say that. And a lot of times people will find things that they like and then they just scroll past and they have a good laugh. They're like, oh, I love that. Let the person know. Let the person know this shifted your
Yes.
perspective. This was funny. So yes, creep was from a quote, if you want to be able to share that, which I was like, what is that? It's so different. And I loved it.
Yeah, so my whole brand is built around soaring and the butterfly. And so the quote was that it was actually a quote from Helen Keller, and she said, "One cannot creep when one feels the urge to soar." And I'll tell you what, that urge to soar has been in me since I was a little girl, but I also was very aware that I had spent most of my life creeping and just, creeping along and just going, at a snail's pace. And I was like, okay, I am ready to soar. So that quote really always calls me up higher. So it's so funny. But yes, finding those connections, and then I think what I really meant so much to me was you did exactly what you said. Like you didn't just like the post, you didn't just comment on the post, like you went and checked me out, right? And then because you commented on, then I went and checked you out. And it was like we both knew, like, oh my gosh, like we are connected. Because I
Yes.
think there's like those power words, power phrases, those things that like, okay, I'm connected to this person, and then explore not only that, but then you said, hey, let's explore this connection. And then you had me on your podcast, and then we talked further, and I said, hey, I want you to be a one of my bonus babes in my program. And so who knows the lives that will be touched because of this connection. And in my book Summon to Soar, in the fifth stage, it is called the rise. And one of the jobs of a butterfly, did you know a butterfly has jobs? And one of her jobs is to connect with her soaring mates.
Mm, I
And
love
that's what we've done here.
I love it. And I
Yes.
have to throw this in there because it was, first of all, divine connection, like we mentioned, from the creep comment, which I love. But then when I had you on my podcast and you talked about the process of a caterpillar becoming a butterfly. And I might have told you this, maybe not, but when we were recording that and literally maybe a week or two to follow after that, God literally did it felt like I was going through that process and I didn't even know it. And it was almost like the start when we started that podcast and when we started to meet. And then all of a sudden, it's like, I think from when we recorded that podcast, it was weeks later that I ended up walking away from something that I built for 5 years, a global kingdom movement, into God saying, you're going to rebirth your consulting company and help people pull out the gold. It's now, and you need to do it. And it was such a prophetic, I'm getting chills. Woo,
Me
it
too.
was such a prophetic timing of listening to that because I'm a visual person and I love to be able to paint pictures. And when I was literally seeing this unfold in real time and looking at pictures of, you know, caterpillars becoming a butterfly, I was like, Lord, I'm just so grateful for Angela. Like what you've put on her life, the timing of which she came in was, I didn't even know at the time was going to be so monumental. And I remember looking back at that and listening to that again. I was like, oh my gosh, like this was me quite literally. And I didn't even know it. And a couple weeks later, it's like, boom, the butterfly came out and whew, it took off and quite literally had a professional pivot, moved to a different state. I mean, the Lord ripped off the stickiest band-aid, but he positioned
Wow.
you in my life for that specific time and even for right now. So you never
Wow.
know what God is
You
going
never
to do.
know.
And so I'm so grateful for you.
Oh my goodness. Thank you. That's amazing. Thank you for telling that story. I was telling you earlier, like I've never been more convinced that I am here for women who are stuck in thriving. Right.
Mm,
And so you had this global kingdom movement and you were thriving, but it was your cocoon. So your
mm,
cocoon was not survival. You way past survival, but you were in this cocoon of like, okay, I've outgrown this season, and you were ready to break out and use your wings and do something new. And so, it's so interesting that sometimes we think that getting stuck is only for people who are surviving. But there
mm.
are men, there are women out there that have gone through transition that they didn't ask for. And it thrust them into surviving, and they turned that surviving into thriving. But now they're ready to go beyond thriving. Now thriving feels like stuck.
Yes.
And that's the difference between a butterfly flapping her wings and her catching the tailwind, and the tailwind taking her farther and higher, taking her soaring.
Mm.
And so, incredible, incredible. Thank you so much for being on with me today. And just, I wanted my audience to get to know you and hear your heart and all that you're doing, and just, all the ways that we're going to be connected. And we're a power couple here.
We are. Power duo unite.
Yes. Awesome. Okay. Thank you so much. And we can't wait to see you inside of the Crown Accelerator. All right. God bless.